On one hand, we have what we can't control. On the other, what we can control. The idea that we can control some things but not others is obvious, which often leads us to brush aside a key insight. We can choose to put our focus on either one, and it pays to be choosy. Every moment we give over to thinking and talking about things outside our control is a moment when we're disempowered and psychologically vulnerable. But whenever we double down on the thoughts, words, and deeds that we can control, we're in an empowered position, and that sets us up for happiness and productivity. This simple sounding, overlooked insight may be the most powerful idea in all of philosophy, and it is the key component of Stoicism. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus told his students that the chief task in life is simply this to identify and separate matter so that I can say clearly to myself which are externals not under my control and which have to do with the choices I actually control. You can't control whether your industry tanks and you get laid off, but you can save up an emergency fund to make transitioning to something else as painless as possible. You can't control whether your product launch will go well. You can put all your effort into making the best product you can and marketing it intelligently. No amount of wishing will make us better looking, change the family we were born into, or make someone else like us. But we can keep fit, we can strive to improve relationships with family members, and we can be kind and welcoming to everyone. The benefits of consistently distinguishing between these two categories is far ranging and can be broadly divided into three categories. The first is freedom from worry. The second is increased leverage. And the third is stoic virtue and eudamonia. There's a quote often attributed to Mark Twain in his later years. He said, I am an old man and have known a great many troubles, but most of them never happened. How often has obsessively worrying turned out to be a good use of your time, or worth the misery it caused? Probably rarely or never. It robs you of your enjoyment of the present and it fills you with anxiety. Philosophers have been pointing this out for centuries. The Stoic philosopher Seneca famously said, there are more things likely to frighten us than to crush us. We suffer more in imagination than in reality. Modern research supports this contention. A 2019 study found that 91% of the worries people had never materialized. Of the remaining 9% of worries that did occur, the outcome was not as bad as expected about a third of the time. 1 in 4 participants had none of their worries occur. So the scale of worry is totally out of proportion with the actual risk we face, and it will ruin our lives if we let it. The dichotomy of control interrupts worrying, which has little value beyond its ability to warn us of unlikely danger, and redirects our attention to making plans and taking actions that help prevent our fears from manifesting or help us bounce back if they do. Give me a place to stand and a lever long enough, Archimedes famously said, and I will move the world. The dichotomy of control suggests we have a lever to pull and a good place to stand before we give our attention to anything. When you focus on what's outside your control, there is no lever and no place to stand. You can't affect it, you can't change it, you're wasting your time and emotional bandwidth by giving it any attention at all. But pull the lever attached to what's inside your control, and you gain a superpower. Suddenly, every thought you have, every word you speak, every action you take is leveraged, and your impact becomes exponentially greater. Most people spend so much time worrying that they neglect what is inside their actual power because there are many things we can do to make any situation we're in better. There's just a whole lot of stuff that is not within our power, and we shouldn't pay any attention to it. When you find yourself focusing on something you can't change, ask yourself, is there some aspect of this that I can work on? We may be horrible at math and worry about flunking a test, but no amount of worry will make us more likely to pass. On the other hand, studying hard or finding a tutor probably will. That's where your leverage is. Although deploying the dichotomy of control may make you less worried and more productive, the Stoics didn't consider this the main reason to use it. Stoics believe living with the four virtues of wisdom, justice, courage, and moderation is the sole good in life and leads to eudaimonia. Eudaimonia is a Greek word generally translated as happiness or human flourishing or a life worth living. Some doubt that virtue alone leads to this fully realized state, and more balk at the valuation of virtue above things not fully under our control, like being healthy, having enough money to live comfortably, or being able to spend time with family and friends. But if you are an ideological Stoic, the dichotomy of control comforts you because virtue can never be taken away. It's always under your control under any circumstances. You can be locked up and put in chains and deprived of your money and possessions and exiled from your friends and family, but nothing can stop you from being wise, just, courageous, and moderate. If you're sure that virtue isn't enough for happiness in your life, I get it, but just know that it's something you may gain an appreciation for over time. In the meantime, feel free to enjoy the peace of mind and productivity that comes with differentiating between things that are inside our control and those that are not. In an upcoming video, I'll talk more about how I've put the dichotomy of control into effect in my life, and you'll be able to find the link to it above when it's been published.
Hey guys, this is Andrew Perlott. Hope you enjoyed the video. If you'd like to learn the philosophical tools the Stoics use to live calmer, more impactful, more deliberate lives, then check out my free course, Reset Week. It gives you Stoicism's most powerful practices, which you can start putting into effect immediately. Follow the link in the video notes below.